Hello everyone, I'm Pete O'Farrell. I'm the TV production teacher here at Walpole High School, and I also get to play with the big kids here at Walpole Media now and again. I'm really looking forward to today's interview. We're happy to have with us a local author, a South Shore guy, and a friend of mine for way over 30 years, William F. Carter, who I've always known as Bill. I'm going to let you talk in 1 second. I want to hype you up for a second. Bill has his bachelor's and master's in creative writing from Harvard University. He's a lifelong writer. He's also a great musician, playing guitar in several local bands, most currently Faded Halo. And you're also really involved in community theater, not to mention being a father of 2 beautiful little girls and a husband. You keep yourself busy.
Yes. Indeed.
So it's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, last time I saw you was at your book signing down in Hingham.
Yep.
So fantastic job.
Thank you.
I want to tear right into this. We're talking about your first published novel, Fire and Wrath, which I tore through. It's a fantastic book about an arsonist and another arsonist, and the cops getting involved. So we want to tear all into it. But first, let's talk about, as long as I've known you, you've been a writer.
Yes.
Like we met when we were teenagers, and you were already writing. So what is it about writing for you?
I think I just always had that creative impulse for as long as I can remember. The earliest thing I remember doing was writing a story on just blank paper about a guy who finds a battleship in a junkyard, because I was a big Star Blazers fan. And he fixes up this battleship by himself and sails it by himself into the ocean and has adventures, and probably not the most plausible thing in the world. But I think I always absorbed like pop culture media, and maybe it wasn't quite the story I wanted to see or read or hear, but so I thought, well, what is my version of this? What story would I like to see? And just combine all these different elements into what I thought was the perfect story for me. So I think that's what started it. Yeah.
It's so cool. Just being creative in whatever form. It's just, I always trying to tell the students, like, just use your creativity. It's so much more exciting than, there's so much to do with it.
Yeah.
So, Star Blazers. We could do a whole other show on Star Blazers.
Yes.
But what are your inspirations? Obviously, we both grew up. We liked sci-fi stuff like that. But tell me some of your authors and just your general inspirations.
Yeah. Authors: Charles Dickens, Tale of Two Cities, which I read for the first time in the 9th grade. Still my favorite book of all time. Those themes of like love and sacrifice and redemption certainly come through in my writing.
I was supposed to read it. I didn't.
I'll
add that to my list.
If you can get through it, it's really good. Of course, we read it, and then the teacher had to explain to us what we read.
That's
so,
cool.
But no, I absolutely love that book. Let's see, as far as writers go, more recent ones are like Dennis Lehane, Richard Stark, who wrote the Parker novels, and Dashiell Hammett, who was one of the original noir writers from the 30s and 40s, Maltese Falcon, Red Harvest, like really paved the way and set so many precedents for what's now considered the classic noir genre. So it definitely influenced by those as far as crime writers. Comic books, Frank Miller, the classic Daredevil, Alan Moore with Watchmen and V for Vendetta. Like, believe it or not, the comics had a huge influence on me as far as like narrative style and storytelling and subject matter. But pop culture, certainly Star Wars, Indiana Jones, comic book stuff, X-Men, everything like that. So a very diverse pantheon of influences. But
one thing, like you were saying, like how you pick up things from different areas. I remember when we met, I was already this massive fan of the band Rush, which is another whole show.
Yes.
But I remember, you started listening to them as well, and there was one line from a song from Natural Science where it says, "The most endangered species, the honest man," and you zoned in on that. I remember you were like, "Wow, oh, that's I love it," and you kind of just like you went off on a tear on that. So I know exactly what you mean by just different things in your environment that just kind of inspire
it just resonate. Yeah, inspire. Yes, and I will touch on that soon with one of your later questions.
So, Fire and Wrath, great read. Give me, well, I've already read it. I tore through it. This is my autographed copy.
Nice.
But give the viewer the 30-second overview. What's the story about?
Story is, so we get Jack Coyle, professional career arsonist, on the run from the cops and from the mob. And he's drawn into a situation in Plymouth County. It just so happens his childhood friend, Vance Miller, is now a sheriff's deputy. And he has a huge problem on his hands with a string of apparently unrelated arsons happening throughout the county. Very prominent, very pillars of the community citizens and their families being burned alive in their homes. There's no apparent connection between the victims. They seem to be at random. They have no clues, no leads, and there's a huge amount of political pressure for them to solve the case. So Vance reaches out to his old buddy and lures him in to help him solve the investigation. And the two of them, like a buddy cop movie, like go on the track and hunt down the serial killer.
So I regretfully am a very slow reader. You know, my wife, she reads like this. Yeah, she just tears through the page. I'm like, how do you do that? Yeah. I really liked this because it sort of had that Michael Crichton kind of feel where the chapters were, quick and punchy, and they're all like scenes from a movie.
Yeah.
Is that sort of the style you like to write in, or did you kind of make that for this particular?
That is now my style. It didn't used to be. In 2009, I took a class at Harvard as part of my degree program called Writing Suspense Fiction. It was taught by Chris Mooney, who's a best-selling writer. He lives in Framingham. And I learned more in one semester from him than I had learned in 10 years of taking writing classes.
Cool.
And he taught me so much stuff, especially when it comes to thrillers. And he said, he's like, keep the chapter short. Each chapter should be its own scene. It should have rising and falling action. Each chapter should have its own arc. And try to leave it on some kind of cliffhanger that doesn't feel like artificial or contrived, and just keep this like, I need to know what happens next.
It was totally successful because I'd be reading and it's like, okay, I got to get up in 5 hours. Oh, but the next chapter is only 6 pages. All right, I'm going to go do one more chapter.
Yeah.
So you totally, you nailed it with that.
Right.
As I'm reading it, I'm like, this is a movie. So is there any, I know it's early and it's your first novel, but when is Hollywood going to make this into a movie?
I don't know, but I would love to see that happen. Absolutely love to see that happen.
You can totally see this as a movie. In the way that it's delivered, you can feel it as a movie, which I thought was very, very cool.
Thank you. I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, and I've been told over the years, and I think it's gotten better as time has gone on, that I can be a very visual writer. And I've definitely, that's one thing my agent certainly pounded into my head. It was like, it can't be all dialogue. You've got to set the stage, give us body language, give us action, give us description without like slowing the pace down. So that took a long time to sort of get the hang of that, and not master it, but at least get better at it. And so keep the pacing going, keep the action moving, but keep it immersed, in the world. So
our friend Jack Coyle, would you describe him? Is he the anti-hero? Is he? How do you describe this guy? Because on paper he's a bad dude.
Yes.
But he's the focus of the story. So like, how would you describe him?
I'd certainly say anti-hero, and then maybe at least the hint of a reluctant hero, which is my favorite kind of hero to write about. I love the earnest, idealistic go-getters like Luke Skywalker and Harry Potter and stuff, but I think the reluctant hero is the most compelling, because there's conflict right there inherently. So yes, he starts off as, he's been a bad guy. He's done a lot of bad stuff, but he's tried to maintain at least some relative code of honor and moral compass.
I almost got a feel of like Dexter.
Yes.
He's not a serial killer, but the way he tried to have that code, even though he was a bad dude. So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Did you have a hard time like with like pitching the story to book publishers, saying, well, my hero is an arsonist?
Well, I will say that a lot of publishers turn me down. I don't know, sometimes we got an answer, sometimes we didn't. So my agent did tell me that some did say they had trouble relating to the character, so maybe that was part of it. Luckily, my publisher, Austin McCauley, who is well known for giving unknown writers a chance, they certainly ran with it. An encouraging thing I found, because I've been writing about this character for a while, with other writers and like writing professors, they were all fascinated with the idea that, oh, your hero is the arsonist. I'm like, I don't think anybody's done that. And I'm like, oh good. That's a good thing. So to do something a little different. So that was certainly the challenge, the balancing act of making him kind of a badass, but also making him relatable and someone that you can root for. And it seems like, just based on the initial feedback, that seems to be working. So
cool.
Yeah. In
the book, there's a lot of backstory with Vance and Jack, and there's all kinds of, he harkens back to things in his past. Do you obviously have more of this guy to tell?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit, like, do you want to go backwards with him into his past, or do you want to see him move forward into like a redemption kind of thing?
I want to do both. So I'll try to keep the story short because it's long. But so in 2006, I wrote my first grand novel, which was supposed to be the Great American Crime novel. And it was about this character named McTeague. And it's his arc from when he's a college-bound teenager to landing in juvenile prison, to then becoming a hardened criminal, and then forming his own crew, and then going back to his town to seek revenge on everybody who wronged him. It's this big epic tale, but McTeague dies at the end because there's really nowhere else for him to go. And just one of his crew, one of his henchmen, this tiny little character was this arsonist, this psycho arsonist named Jack Coyle. And he completely unexpectedly leaped off the page to me. I'm like, this guy's cool, and I don't know how that happened. Stuff just kind of happened.
So you've got a universe of this that you can draw for him.
Yes. So when that story was over, and obviously McTeague is dead, so I can't do much with him. So I was like, and there was a ton of characters in this story, and I was like, well, what about him? I want to know where he goes from here. So I did write another novel in 2009, and featuring Coyle, and that was the whole story of the banknotes and why the mob is after him. This more kind of hard-boiled, like gritty caper. And I did write that, and I did give it to a publisher, thanks to my professor's connections. And they said, we like it, we like your character, we like your story, we like your style, but it's too slow. It's just, the pacing is just slow. We want airport thrillers that you can page through, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I didn't feel like going back and redoing that entire thing. And I already had the idea for this. So I was like, well, let me try the next story and see how that goes.
Yeah.
And I incorporate everything I'd been learning over the years and created this over much time and effort. So those are now potential prequels that I might harken back to, but I have 2 or 3 story ideas in mind, sequels for this.
Nice.
So where he goes from here. And yes, I think he'll stop being a criminal and at least try to be some kind of relative force for good. Like maybe
like the Punisher.
The Punisher, or like the A-Team, where like he may be somebody who, or the Equalizer, like he can help out when nobody else can, kind of thing. So I've already started the sequel, and I have 2 more in mind after that.
So you were saying when we were talking beforehand that the sales have been really good.
So far, so good.
So that hopefully lends to the ability to expand on this.
Yeah, to keep going with
the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have the Bill Cinematic Universe in development.
That would be amazing. Yeah. So my publisher, what I found out from my agent, it was a very sobering conversation I had, was that even the big 5 publishers don't really support first-time writers unless they're the next J.K. Rowling or whatever. Like they have like $1 million idea. So I'm kind of on my own for the promotion and marketing, and I've been doing my best to do that and get it out there. And it's been successful so far, more so than I ever would have imagined.
So
Yeah, I'm just continuing to try to reach out, like opportunities like this, which I'm profoundly grateful for. Certainly will help get the word out and let it spread. And I'm going to keep trying to find ways to market it and get it out there, and just hope that maybe it's successful enough to warrant a sequel. And we'll see how it goes. I hope so.
I'll say, I enjoy reading, but being a teacher and all that, I've been so busy. I have barely read any books in the last several years. Okay. And I kind of made a point to myself that this summer I'm going to read a few books. And then you came out with this, and this is one of them. And it was a fantastic read because it was like I said, it was written like a movie. I don't want to say it was a quick read because it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable to the point that I didn't want to put the book down.
All right, that's awesome.
That's my way of putting it.
All right.
So this is a thing that won't happen to the average reader, but to me reading it, knowing you, I felt like, you know that meme with Leonardo DiCaprio from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when he was like, that, I know that. I kept coming across things. It was only a couple of times, which I thought was good, because if you just put in every little thing about your life that that all of your inner circle knows, it wouldn't have worked. No. But the gold Chevette that you drove as a teenager makes its triumphant reappearance. Yes. And I was like, oh my God, it's the Chevette. So my wife's looking at me, I'm like, Bill used to drive a Chevette. So just seeing those couple of little fun things in there, I thought was really funny.
Oh, good.
And then our friend Norm, when we were growing up, had the Cutlass Supreme. That made an appearance. My '78 Dodge Aspen station wagon with wood trim did not make an appearance in this novel, so I expect to see that at some point.
I will make it a point to fit it in wherever I can.
With the wood trim.
With the wood trim, yes, yes.
What other parts, were you able to use your life experience and like just fit right into the book? Like almost like, I'm going to put this in just for myself.
There were a couple of opportunities. I will say, without spoilers, that whole flashback sequence, like that timeline or that plot thread, that is unfortunately based on, the inciting incident is based on a real life occurrence.
Oh, interesting.
Yes.
All right, yep, don't give it away.
I won't give it away. I'll say that obviously it did not escalate into what happens in the book.
Yeah.
But it was a very unpleasant experience, and it definitely caused a rift between me and that circle of friends, which luckily with most of them I've reconciled with after.
Yeah. But, interesting. I almost gave something away.
All right, that's right. But it was just, now I wonder if it was a smart thing to do to put that in there, but it was just the perfect inciting incident. You haven't read it, I think you can imagine.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, I did have a bit of a pyro streak as a kid.
Me too.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we were both idiots, and the fireworks and campfires and all that fun stuff back in the day. It
was fascinating. It was power. So that little anecdote about the marsh fire, that really happened. And that was really my fault. And luckily nobody got hurt, which is good. But and just also, like, obviously when I was a teenager, I was writing about teenagers. And now that I'm in my early 50s, I'm writing about more mature characters. And I thought his character was certainly more compelling as in his 40s. Like just a veteran having like this grizzled guy having been there and done that, been around. And I think that made for a compelling character, because he's filled with regret and he's filled with guilt, and now he's at the point where, like, now he wants to try to make up for that in some way. So I think it's a great period in his life. So I can certainly relate to it, because I certainly have my share of regrets. Nothing like his, luckily. But I mean, there's so many things I wish I could go back and do differently. So just that weight, that burden that weighs on him is all too relatable.
So Jack, our main character, is an arsonist. With, I don't know if the statute of limitations is on some of these things, so I won't talk too much about us. But what kind of research, aside from buying fireworks and having campfires as kids, What kind of research did you have to do to make this guy more authentic?
I had to do a ton of, I was weeks and weeks of pouring through stuff. Like luckily, like I wouldn't have been able to do this like 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. Just the internet is helpful sometimes. Yeah. But I had to, not only had to learn about like intelligent arson techniques, like anything from accelerants to the behavior of a fire to the effect and what happens if you're actually in one.
Yeah.
Because like I said, it's usually the smoke that's going to kill you, not the fire itself. And like little things like that I hadn't known. But also I had to learn a lot about arson investigation in order to make their whole process seem realistic. And it seems like it worked. Because like I said, one of my cousins is a veteran firefighter. And he commented on one of my posts recently saying, "You were a born fire investigator, like you got everything right, like I'm so impressed." And I'm like, thank goodness. I'm like, all right, good. When I found out he was reading it, I was a little nervous. So I'm like, So, but he said that the research paid off. So I'm glad I spent all that time doing that, because it certainly, I think, benefited the narrative.
Very cool. And then it, especially for people in our area, it takes place in the South Shore. A lot of us down in Plymouth. So obviously some of that was your haunts back in the day. Did you go back, drive the roads? Did you use Google Maps? Your search history, by the way, must be use DuckDuckGo, I hope. Keep it clean.
What is that?
Oh, that's a search engine that doesn't keep track of any of your searches.
Oh, that is good to know. I did not know
for the next book.
Yes, like between all my research about like accelerants and how to build bombs and how to start fires, and I'm sure the FBI would have been maybe been a little curious about my intentions. I don't know. But I did not go. I mean, I've been back to Plymouth because I lived there for a few years in my formative years as a teenager. But I've been back, but I did actually not do that like Google Maps, or because I take a few liberties with the geography just for the simplicity, like to keep things simple for the narrative. But yeah, I mean, my brother and I used to go fishing in the ponds behind the cranberry bogs in those woods. So that was a very like visceral memory for me to have a lot of the action take place in those woods. But no, I should go back now and just see. I don't even know if I can get back there in those woods anymore, if that's even accessible. But it does certainly bring back a lot of memories from the 40 years ago now. Yeah.
So it's obviously not as simple as I'm going to start writing this book and now I'm done and now it's printed and I'm published. But this particular story, if you had to think about like when did this start till the day you got the first case of these things delivered to your house?
It's a long time. I started writing this in 2010.
Okay.
Because I finished the other one. And and to be honest, I don't even remember how I got this idea, like where the nucleus of this came from. I don't remember, which is kind of, I'm a little embarrassed to say. Old. Yeah, I'm getting old. And it's been going on so long, but I kept having to put it down to do other things. Like I did my master's thesis in 2013, and then I was with my professor, we did a co-author thing. We did a collaboration, which unfortunately never saw the light of day, but I still have the novel and I might use it if he lets me. And then I left it alone until 2017 when I got my agent, and I said, hey, he's like, well, what do you got? And I'm like, well, I got this, what do you think? And he's like, okay, well, we can work with this. So, and then 7 years of, like I said, 20 something rounds of revisions where I would send it to him, he would read it, like mark changes with the Microsoft Word, and it's like, okay, go and fix all this. And I'm like, okay. And that could take 2 weeks, it could take 2 months, like I said, with my schedule. And
even that, imagine that, well, God, 40 something years ago, and type.
Right, no, I'd be,
like, whoop, rip that one up, start again.
Yeah, that's what it would have been. So yeah, it was a long process, but it's a dream come true, and even just looking at the cover with my name on it, it gives me chills because it doesn't seem real after all this time. I can't believe it actually happened. So
I went to your book signing down at Derby Street down in Hingham.
Thank you.
And oh, thank you. It was fun, and the place was packed. So, you know, are they having you back? Are they doing this again for you?
Yes. So I was there with 5 other authors, I think, and we ran out of my books.
Amazing.
I'm so incredibly thankful to everybody who showed up. Like people, friends, family I haven't seen in 10, 15 years, but luckily I keep in touch with on social media, and they all came, and it was amazing. Like I said, I felt like George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life. I'm the richest man in the world. So we ran out of books 45 minutes into the event.
Yeah. And your poor wife had to run home.
Yes. So my wife had to go home and bring my complimentary copies that I had gotten so we could sell those. And so Barnes & Noble, the guy running it, this guy, Ian, was a super nice guy, was like, okay. I'm like, can I bring my books? Like, how would that work? He's like, that's fine. I'm already ordered another shipment of your books, and then we'll give you back however many you sell of your own. So, nice. and then we'll book you for another event because this one went so well. We definitely want you back. So yes, so I'm doing another signing on October 12th, and this is with like 6 other authors, which is fine. Yeah. So yeah, I get to do another book signing. So far, the response has been good. Looks like a decent crowd of people who maybe didn't make it the last time, or some people got there after all the books were gone. Because then I sold out of all my books too. Yeah,
this was one of your like from home version, copies that I got my hands on.
Yes. So
elbow people. And got nasty.
Good job. I mean, kudos for getting it. Yeah, I'm glad everybody was able to. At least most people were able to get one. So yes, gonna get to do that again, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Nice. So it's funny, like. I promised ourselves that we wouldn't just do memory lane stuff, but we've known each other. We met working at Sears at the South Shore Plaza back in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. Yep. Best job ever. Yep. Yes. It was just so much fun. Yeah. Like I had said at the beginning, even then you were writing, and one of the times, our common friend Norm. You had gone on break, and you would be writing, like you'd be standing at the cash registers, and you'd just start writing stories. Yes. So you wrote, he who laughs last, and then it was like, Bill, go on break, and so it was just sitting there. So I was like, I can't leave it. So I I put in a sentence, and then Norm came over, and he's like, So then he threw something, and it became this stupid collaboration. It was like this free form. We just kept each writing a sentence, and it got more and more ridiculous as it went. I still have it somewhere. I looked for it. Okay. I looked for it last night, and I couldn't find it. I still have all of our little movie posters that we draw up. But,
so that story was hilarious.
It got more and more hilarious as it went.
Yeah, as time has gone by. I still remember like certain lines from it. Yeah, it was so good. Of course, at the time, I was like, Harvard, I'm like, hey, because of course I'm the butt of the joke in the story. But as I said, as time went by, I was like,
you left it there. So
I did. That was my own fault. But yeah, no, that was classic. So that's a great memory.
So, like, are there things like that do things like that spark ideas in your brain? It's like, oh, I could turn that into something, or
yes, absolutely. So my first novel that I ever wrote, I wrote it in '91, so I was still at Sears, and it was like this post-apocalyptic sci-fi fantasy.
I remember
the later days. Yeah, yeah. And it featured all of us, like me and all my circle of friends, because we're like the 30 people who somehow survived this giant apocalypse. And
the Sears men's department was nuclear-proof.
And it was more or less a ripoff of The Stand in so many ways. But then it was like 2019, it was pre-pandemic, that I looked at it and I'm like, you know what, I could do something with this. So I've been reimagining it as a whole nother story. Same basic concept, but executed completely different and certainly more thoughtful and more original. And it still features us, but now the characters have fictional names. Because I was writing under my stupid pen name at the time, so I was like, oh, well, I can use everybody's real first
Nobody
names.
will know.
Yeah. But
use my name.
I've imagined that as like this sci-fi fantasy trilogy, and I've just been doing the synopsis for each book. And the synopsis, just the synopsis for book 1 is like 60 pages.
Nice.
So that makes it easier for when I actually go. So
Yeah.
I'm going to tackle that whenever I have a chance. I just want to map out all three to make it consistent. But yes, I'm absolutely going to take that story that set me on fire back then. It was just such a huge inspiration and such an amazing experience, and just rework that into something that maybe could be marketable. Yeah.
So you have a lot of irons in the fire.
Yes.
Is there a place for you? Is it like, it's now time for me to start writing? I am going to sit in my writing chair and then I will be done? Or is it just like, are you all over the place when you write?
I typically seem to work best in the morning. So luckily I work from home. I'm fully remote, which is awesome. And so I'm on the clock at 8 in the morning, but I typically get to my desk by 7. And if I'm feeling industrious, that's when I'll work on something. And before I know it, the hour's up and I gotta get to like get on the clock. But yeah, during my lunch hour or sometimes at night. I'm usually too tired by then. But I'm always thinking about it. No matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing, there's something in the back of my mind, like, oh, what if I do this? So that will solve that. And it's just always in the back of my head. So, but yeah, I try to work in the morning, and it seems to be going okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So, I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Tell everybody where they can get their hands on this awesome read.
Sure, absolutely. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes & Nobles. You can get them. You can order them online. It seems like they're still in stock, which is good. Amazon is great because they track the sales, and I can feel like I'm doing something.
And it's also, you could get it as an ebook as well?
Yes, you can get it in paperback and an ebook.
Nice.
Yeah, the ebooks, it's like $4.50 or something. So
that's not bad.
Yeah, that's not bad.
I'm still, maybe it makes me old, but I like having a book in my hands.
So do I.
I've seen the Kindle tablets that you can read. I need to turn a page.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm still like this. So yes, it's available. It's a fun read. Like I said,
Absolutely.
The advanced reviews I got from like bloggers and editors has been good, and the reader reviews. Thank you so much.
All 5-star reviews.
All 5-star reviews. 8 reviews so far. All 5 stars. Yeah. So that's incredibly encouraging. So yeah, I'm just curious to see where it's going to go. But yeah, check it out if you're looking for something different, a little like a crime thriller on a slightly offbeat. Yeah,
it's a really fun read. I don't read a lot of like crime thriller, that kind of stuff, and it was so readable, so much fun. I loved it.
I'm glad to hear it.
So, Bill, I'd like to thank you so much for joining us, and for everybody out there, thanks for watching, and we will make sure you hit that like and subscribe on that Walpole Media YouTube page and all that good stuff, and go find Bill. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.